While several women may have reigned in ancient Egypt, only a few wielded as much power and ruled as wisely and assertively as Hatshepsut. But Hatshepsut's rise to prominence was clouded by controversy. To attain her ambition of becoming a pharaoh, she had to undergo a variety of duties that may seem rather odd to us. Welcome back to Nutty History, and in this video, we'll explore some of the weird things Hatshepsut performed prior to and during her reign as Pharaoh of Egypt. Viewer discretion is advised for this video, as some of this video may be offensive or disturbing. We, the makers of this video, in no way support or condone the actions of the subjects featured. Hatshepsut, as pharaoh, embarked on large construction projects, particularly in the vicinity of Thebes. Her most notable effort was the massive memorial temple at Deir el-Bahari, which is regarded as one of the architectural wonders of ancient Egypt. Another significant success of her rule was the authorization of a trading voyage that returned to Egypt with huge riches such as ivory, ebony, gold, leopard skins, and incense from a remote land known as Punt, possibly modern-day Eritrea. Hatshepsut most likely died around 1458 BC, when she was in her mid-40s. She was buried in the Valley of the Kings, which is located in the hills behind Deir el-Bahari, and was also home to Tutankhamun. In another attempt to legitimize her reign, she reburied her father's sarcophagus in her tomb so that they may lay together. We don't know who attempted to eliminate Hatshepsut from history, but traditional wisdom has it that her stepson sought to remove all traces of someone else ruling in his place for half his life. However, as more of the historical record was unearthed, pun intended, it became clear that the erasure took place in Thutmose III's reign. Furthermore, Thutmose III was Hatshepsut's most successful general, as well as an athlete, author, historian, botanist, and architect during her reign. He seemed to excel in whatever he tried, and after Hatshepsut died, he had a happy 33-year reign during which he expanded Egypt's land to its greatest extent. The more likely suspect is Thutmose III's son and heir, Amenhotep II, who co-ruled with his father in his last years. His claim to the throne was fragile as the son of a minor wife of the monarch, but removing his great-aunt's history reinforced his claim. As a result, scholars in ancient Egypt understood very little about Hatshepsut's existence until 1822, when they decoded and deciphered the hieroglyphics on the walls of Deir el-Bahari. Following the death of her husband, Thutmose II, the Egyptian judiciary was left in a quandary. Should they make the legal heir to the throne king, despite the fact that he was only 2 years old at the time, or an older, more mature woman? As ridiculous as that may appear to us today, it was a significant problem. Finally, a choice was made. They agreed to appoint Hatshepsut as regent while ascending to the throne as joint rulers until the newborn king reached the age of maturity. Hatshepsut devised a cunning yet ingenious plan to seize the throne while serving as queen regent to her stepson. She said that her father, Thutmose I, named her as heir to his throne while on his deathbed. Her father, according to Hatshepsut, said these words, "This daughter of mine, Knumedamun Hatshepsut, may she live, I have appointed as my successor upon my throne. She shall direct the people in every sphere of the palace. It is she indeed who shall lead you. Obey her words. Unite yourselves at her command." She was undoubtedly willing to bend the truth and embellish the facts in order to imply that the gods supported her rule. She was, however, far from the only pharaoh to act in this fashion, and it was not entirely selfish. Every pharaoh was in charge of keeping Ma'at and making sure everything was in order. But she was still a woman, and women were not permitted to hold administrative positions in ancient Egypt. The only exception was if she was in a relationship with a notable male figure, and even then, she was not suitable for the position of pharaoh. Hatshepsut was the third woman to ascend to the throne in Egypt's 3,000-year history, and the first to wield absolute power. Hatshepsut worked hard to keep her position of power despite the fact that it was difficult for women in particular. So she did something unprecedented. She blended male and feminine iconography in her monuments and inscriptions. Many of her earliest depictions show her with a feminine figure and the traditional male pharaoh headgear. At times, she is shown wearing an ankle-length gown and standing with her legs spread as if she were a male. Hatshepsut later consolidated her power by posing as a male king, equipped with a beard and muscles. What motivated her to do this? Probably to appear more intimidating in order to command more respect. Hatshepsut was the daughter of the famed Pharaoh Thutmose I and his wife, Ahmose I. Given that pharaohs had numerous wives at the time, Thutmose I produced a son with his second wife, Mutnofret, called Thutmose II, who became the kingdom's heir since Ahmose I was unable to bear a son. When Thutmose I died without a son from his first wife, Hatshepsut was obliged to marry her half-brother, Thutmose II, as a last resort to secure her family status. Thutmose II and Hatshepsut had a daughter named Neferure. But Hatshepsut, like her mother, could not bear a boy, so Thutmose II married a second wife, who bore him a son, Thutmose III. Since Hatshepsut was the king's wife, she was elevated to the rank of God's wife, Amun. Due to her new status, Hatshepsut would now have access to the most sacred area of Thebes, the Karnak Temple. She had odd responsibilities as God's wife, one of which was to remove her clothing every time she entered the temple where the god statues were kept. Following this, the high priest would offer milk and meat to Amun in order for him to acquire strength as he was reincarnated as an infant every day. Being God's wife of Amun also meant that she was his helping hand, as Amun was frequently depicted as having just one arm and one leg, making it impossible for him to carry out some of his functions alone. Her new rank obligated her to go to the temple and help the high priest with minor tasks. But the most assistance Amun required was with his rebirth. She was in charge of overseeing this rebirth as God's helping hand, so each morning as the citrum rattled, she would take a soft grasp of the statue's nether regions to help it be reborn. This deed enabled the god to revive himself. You might be wondering what would happen if she didn't complete this ominous task. The ancient Egyptians believed that if the god's wife Amun could not accomplish her sacred daily duty, the world would end because the deity Amun's rebirth provided them with rain and sun for their farmlands as well as protection. If you heard that a 12-year-old girl was being handed away by her parents for marriage, you'd probably cringe. However, this was not the case under Hatshepsut's reign. You see, the ancient Egyptians did not try to hide or protect their young children from marriage or what follows after. In fact, intercourse was so deeply embedded in their culture and religion that obscene things were not frowned upon. In reality, the earliest gods were couples consisting of brothers and sisters. And because many extended Egyptian families lived in one-room huts with very little privacy protection, the act just wasn't private. Hatshepsut is said to have married King Thutmose II when she was only 12 years old. Her marriage, on the other hand, was not a pleasant one because she had to constantly care for her sick husband. The monarch was a mess, with ulcers and seeping pus all over his skin, which researchers discovered while identifying his mummy. He also had an enlarged heart, which indicated that he was prone to arrhythmias and shortness of breath. So, who do you think actually attempted to erase Hatshepsut from existence? Tell us in the comment section below. And don't forget to share and like the video if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching yet another Nutty History. We'll see you next time.